You know what's wild? When God uses your enemy's weapons to win the war. Greece conquered the world with ideas before armies. Greek philosophy still shapes how we think. Greek architecture influences how we build. Greek democracy informs how we govern. But when the empire of Alexander the Great collided with the message of a crucified Jewish carpenter, something unprecedented happened. The gospel went viral in the Greek mind. Welcome to Greece, proof that God can use anything to prepare the world for truth. Greece's role was prophesied centuries before it became a world power. Daniel 2:39 described the third kingdom. After you, there will arise another kingdom, inferior to yours, and then a third kingdom, one of bronze, which will rule the whole earth. Bronze represented Greece, confirmed by the bronze armor Greek soldiers wore. Daniel 8:22-1. The two-horned ram you saw represents the kings of Media and Persia. The shaggy goat represents the king of Greece, and the large horn between his eyes is the first king. That first king was Alexander the Great, who conquered the known world by age 32. Daniel 8:8 predicted his death and empire's division. Thus, the goat became very great, but at the height of his power, his large horn was broken off, and 4 prominent horns came up in its place. When Alexander died in 323 BC, his empire fractured among 4 generals. God's prophetic word, given 200+ years earlier, came to pass exactly. Alexander didn't just conquer militarily, he transformed culture. This Hellenization had profound implications for the gospel. First, Koine Greek became the common language from Spain to India. When Paul wrote to Roman churches, he wrote in Greek, not Latin. The Gospels were written in Greek, not Hebrew. Why? Greek was the universal language. Second, Greek philosophy prepared intellectual ground. Greek thinkers had grappled with concepts of logos, eternal truth, the soul, and moral absolutes. John 1:1 deliberately uses Greek philosophical terminology. In the beginning was the Word, logos, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Greek word logos means word, reason, principle. Greek philosophers used it to describe the rational principle governing the universe. John takes their question, "What is the logos?" and answers, "Jesus." The word they were searching for became flesh. Greek minds were already asking the questions that the gospel answered. Third, Greek cities became hubs of commerce and communication, perfect launching points for missionary work. Between testaments, Greek influence reached crisis under Antiochus IV Epiphanes. Daniel 11:31 prophesied, "His forces will rise up and desecrate the temple fortress. They will abolish the daily sacrifice and set up the abomination of desolation." In 167 BC, Antiochus did exactly this: outlawed Jewish worship, desecrated the temple, set up an altar to Zeus. This sparked the Maccabean revolt. Jews fought to preserve their religion, and eventually won independence. Hanukkah celebrates the temple's rededication. But Greek culture had already penetrated Jewish society. By Jesus' time, Greek was widely spoken in Judea. The New Testament's most dramatic Greek encounter came when Paul arrived in Athens. Acts 17:16. While Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he was deeply disturbed in his spirit to see that the city was full of idols. Athens, the intellectual capital of the world, home of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, had gods for everything. Acts 17:18. Some Epicurean and Stoic philosophers began to debate with him. Some of them asked, "What is this babbler trying to say?" They brought Paul to the Areopagus Mars Hill, where philosophical debates occurred. Paul's speech is a masterclass in contextualizing the gospel. Acts 17:22, 2-3. Men of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious. For as I walked around and examined your objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, "To an unknown God." Therefore, what you worship as something unknown, I now proclaim to you. Paul didn't insult their search for truth, he completed it. He quoted Greek poets, Acts 17:28. "For in him we live and move and have our being." As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring. Then, Paul challenged Greek philosophy at its core, Acts 17:29-31. Therefore, being offspring of God, we should not think that the divine being is like gold or silver or stone, an image formed by man's skill and imagination. Although God overlooked the ignorance of earlier times, he now commands all people everywhere to repent. For he has set a day when he will judge the world with justice by the man he has appointed. He has given proof of this to everyone by raising him from the dead. The resurrection, the stumbling block, Acts 17:32. When they heard about the resurrection of the dead, some began to mock him, but others said, "We want to hear you again on this topic." Greek philosophy could conceive of an immortal soul, but physical resurrection? Scandalous. Yet, Acts 17:34. But some joined him and believed, including Dionysius the Areopagite, a woman named Damaris, and others with them. The gospel penetrated Athens itself. The Greek word for wisdom is Sophia. Greeks searched for Sophia through philosophy, love of wisdom. But 1 Corinthians 1:24 says Christ is the power of God and the wisdom of God. The Sophia they sought through human reason was revealed in a crucified carpenter. Paul's most extensive Greek ministry was Corinth. His letters reveal the tension between Greek wisdom and gospel truth. 1 Corinthians 1:22-5. Jews demand signs and Greeks search for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than man's wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than man's strength. Greeks valued intellectual sophistication. The cross seemed crude, philosophically absurd. Yet Paul insisted this foolishness was true wisdom. 1 Corinthians 2:4-5. My message and my preaching were not with persuasive words of wisdom, but with a demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith would not rest on men's wisdom, but on God's power. Paul didn't win Greeks with superior philosophy. He won them with the Spirit's power, demonstrating truth. Christianity spread rapidly through Greek cities. Why? Greek language, unified communication. Greek cities had synagogues where God-fearing Greeks gathered. Greek philosophy had prepared questions. Greek mobility enabled missionary movement. Acts 19:10 describes Paul's Ephesian ministry. This continued for 2 years, so that everyone who lived in the province of Asia, Jews and Greeks alike, heard the word of the Lord. 2 years in one city, but all Asia heard through Greek networks. Here's the profound truth. God used Alexander's conquest in Greek culture to prepare the world for the gospel. Daniel prophesied it. Alexander established it without knowing God's purpose. Paul leveraged it for kingdom advance. Galatians 4:4. But when the fullness of time had come, God sent his Son. That fullness included Greek language, Greek roads, Greek cities, and Greek questions, all positioned perfectly for gospel answers. So what does this mean for us? Here's what you need to do. First, recognize that God is already at work in your culture. Paul saw Athens full of idols, but also saw preparation. The unknown God altar became his entry point. What questions is your culture asking? Where is society searching for meaning, truth, justice? Those questions are divine setup. Instead of just condemning culture, look for the preparation. Write down 3 questions people around you are asking. How does the gospel answer them? Second, learn to translate truth without compromising it. Paul quoted Greek poets, used Greek concepts, spoke Greek language but never softened the cross. He contextualized without diluting. Translation is not betrayal. Speaking people's language doesn't mean accepting their conclusions. How are you communicating gospel truth? Are you using insider Christian language no one understands? Or translating eternal truth into terms that connect with real questions? Third, expect resistance at the resurrection. Greeks mocked Paul when he mentioned resurrection. That's still the stumbling block. Modern culture accepts spirituality, morality, even Christ-like values, but physical resurrection? Literal return? Final judgment? That's where the line is drawn. Don't be surprised when people accept 90% in bulk at the 10% that matters most. The resurrection is offensive because it claims history has a hinge point, and that hinge is Jesus. Fourth, trust the Spirit's power over intellectual persuasion. Paul said his message wasn't with persuasive words of wisdom, but demonstration of the Spirit's power. You don't need to out-argue people into the kingdom. You need to demonstrate truth through changed lives, answered prayers, genuine love, Spirit-empowered witness. Stop thinking your job is to win debates. Your job is to bear witness to what you've seen. Fifth, use the tools God provides. Greek language, roads, cities. Paul didn't create these. God did. Alexander built the infrastructure. Paul used it for gospel advance. What tools has God provided in your context? Technology, education, mobility, communication platforms? These aren't neutral, they're God's preparation. Stop asking, should Christians use this? Start asking, how can this serve gospel purposes? Because here's the bottom line. God used a pagan emperor's cultural revolution to spread the gospel. Alexander never knew he was building the highway for Christian truth. Greek philosophers never knew their questions were preparing minds for Jesus. God's sovereignty doesn't just overcome obstacles, it converts them into opportunities. The very culture that seemed opposed to truth became the vehicle for gospel spread. Philosophy's search for wisdom found its answer. Language designed for commerce carried divine revelation. Cities built for pagan worship became centers of Christian community. Your culture isn't the enemy of the gospel, it's the field where gospel seed falls. Your generation's questions aren't obstacles to faith, they're opportunities for answers. Your society's tools aren't threats to the church, they're instruments for kingdom advance. But you have to do what Paul did. Engage the questions, speak the language, use the tools, but never compromise the message. The cross is foolishness. The resurrection is scandalous. Christ is exclusive. These non-negotiables offended Greeks then and offend people now, because human wisdom fails. Philosophy without revelation ends in empty speculation. Culture without Christ leads nowhere. But God's foolishness, a crucified carpenter rising from the dead, saves. Don't just condemn your culture. Study it. Understand it. See where God is already at work. Then proclaim Christ in terms people can hear while refusing to soften what they need to know. Greece proves God can use anything. Even pagans, even philosophers, even the wisdom of this world when he flips it to serve his purposes. The question is, will you join him in that work? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.